The U.S. military says it's conducted strikes against Iran in response to a drone attack on a commercial ship that was transiting the Strait of Hormuz a day earlier. U.S. Central Command says it's targeted Iranian missile and drone storage locations, as well as coastal radar sites. Iranian state media is reporting a projectile struck near a pier in the city of Sirik in southern Iran. The city overlooks the Strait of Hormuz. Iran says Kish Island has also been struck. In a statement, CENTCOM says the unwarranted aggression against commercial shipping by Iranian forces clearly violated the ceasefire. Furthermore, Iran's dangerous behavior undermined freedom of navigation, as well as commerce increasingly flows through this vital international trade corridor. Now, CENTCOM forces continue to provide safe passage coordination and support to commercial vessels transiting the strait. The U.S. military remains present and vigilant to ensure all aspects of the agreement with Iran are adhered to, obeyed, and in full force and effect. Earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump accused Iran of carrying out the attack on this commercial ship, calling it a, quote, foolish violation of the ceasefire agreement.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot yesterday, actually 4, we knocked down 3. At a ship, not an allied ship, but a ship, a very expensive ship, and it was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Will the U.S.
You'll find out.
Iran's Revolutionary Guard says it's responded by targeting several locations of U.S. Army deployment in the region. Rasul Shadar has more details from the capital, Tehran.
Iranian Revolutionary Guards have just released a statement regarding American latest attacks on Iranian southern part in Sirik and in Kish Island. So simply the statement saying that the United States has violated its obligations a few hours ago. And so as a part of this violation, the United States launched airstrike against the coast of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And in response to this act of aggression, the Navy of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps targeted the deployment sites of the United States military in the region. Not site, but site. So they're talking about multiple locations that were targeted by IRGC in response to American attacks. So here, there's also a warning by IRGC saying that the American aggression has now received the necessary response, and the same course of actions will follow in the future. Should such aggression be repeated, our response will be broader than this. So here, for Iranians, it's a strategic decision to assert control and sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz, because for Iranians or for Tehran, the Strait of Hormuz is the ultimate deterrence and also the biggest leverage that Tehran has on the negotiating table. So giving up on that means Iran giving up on its pressure tool. And that's why Tehran, whether it's politicians, the officials, or the military officers from the IRGC, they're saying they are ready to fight to preserve their control over the Strait of Hormuz, because they believe the war has changed the strategic environment. There's a new reality, and they will fight to preserve this new reality. So J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, said that to somehow tackle the tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, there has been a line of communication established between the United States and Iran. But IRGC today has just said that, well, there is no such a communication line, is not established and will not be. So now that the parties are engaged militarily, mainly the question is how to diffuse these tensions, as particularly the IRGC's warning that if these actions repeat, or this kind of actions repeat, its response is going to be harsher and wider. And of course, the bigger concern is that if IRGC keeps stopping the vessels and Americans attacking the Iranian military sites, whether this kind of actions will eventually undermine the memorandum of understanding and the ongoing negotiations. Rasul Sardar, Al Jazeera, Tehran.
Let's get the latest from Washington now and bring in our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, what are you hearing from the White House about these latest U.S. strikes on Iran?
Well, this is certainly the first violation or major U.S. military retaliation since the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, since the ceasefire. And it's clear from a U.S. standpoint that this is a red line. The freedom of navigation cannot be interrupted. And as a result, that is why we've seen CENTCOM putting out the statement that the United States had launched strikes inside Iran. Now, consistent with the statement from the IRGC side, what we know is that all sides agree the U.S. hit multiple targets, missile as well as drone storage locations and also coastal radar sites. Now, why did it choose those targets? Well, we know that this is a retaliatory action by the United States to what it says prompted this, and that is the drone attacks on 4 commercial ships, one of which you heard U.S. President Donald Trump talking about in the Oval Office at the start of this program. He said sustained some damage. So it's clear that freedom of navigation is this red line for the White House, and they're also sending the message that while this was an attack on commercial vessels and not a U.S. warship, the response is calibrated. In other words, it's measured because the message seems to be being sent that the United States wants to preserve diplomacy.
Kimberly, J.D. Vance, the vice president, he was there in Switzerland leading those talks with Iran, and now he's also weighed in on these latest U.S. strikes. What's he saying?
Yeah, the White House hasn't put out a statement through the U.S. president, but since these strikes by CENTCOM, by the U.S. military and announced by CENTCOM, we have heard from J.D. Vance, the U.S. vice president. He posted on X, and he said, Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. We have honored it. If they have disagreements about how the MOU or Memorandum of Understanding is being applied, they can pick up the phone. But violence will be met with violence. So in other words, the vice president saying, Iran, you broke our agreement. We are going to enforce this. They are saying this is not a return to war by the United States. What this is an enforcement measure. Now, the U.S. president, or rather vice president, also saying that the goal here is diplomacy and that moving forward, if there are issues that need to be resolved, Iran needs to use those communication channels. It's clear that the United States is trying to avoid escalation and preserve the very fragile ceasefire and 60-day window for the Iran negotiations in order to get a final agreement that would limit Iran's nuclear program.
That's Al Jazeera's White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, reporting live from Washington. Thanks, Kimberly. Israel, Lebanon and the U.S. have signed a framework agreement after a 5th round of talks in Washington. The intention is to restore Lebanon's sovereignty and